بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. Welcome to our bi-weekly Dawah and training, where we are honored to have and welcome Brother Amir Mertaban. He is the Executive Director of the Islamic Society of Orange County, and I've met him and known him before, maybe a couple of years ago, when he was the chair of Why Islam in Southern California. Brother Amir, alhamdulillah, accepted our invitation, and he will be speaking about Dawah in the age of genocide. I don't want to take much time, and inshallah, I'll give you the microphone, brother. Go ahead and enrich our knowledge. Jazakallah khair.
وإياكم. الله يبارك فيكم يا رب. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. أما بعد، السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. So good to see you all. Mashallah, your team is awesome. As soon as I met the brothers, it was instantaneous love and connection. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless your efforts and bless you and reward you, and keep your community, inshallah, a beacon of light and hope for the rest of us. So without further ado, this is an interesting topic for me because the brother was asking me what I should prepare for, and I kept trying to think of something that would be relevant and something that I could speak to personally. I try to stay away from topics that I don't know much about. So, and this one kind of hit home. It was Dawah in times of genocide or hardship. And it was interesting because one of the reasons why Islam blew up and grew so quickly in the early 2000s was because of what happened after 9/11. And this is a good preface for the discussion today. And I should preface, brothers and sisters, I'm not an expert in Dawah, I'm not a sheikh, I'm not a scholar. This is all just my opinion on what's going on. Okay, so just please take everything with a grain of salt and keep that in mind, inshallah. Take the khair from people and implement whatever you can. So what happened after 9/11, I'm 41, and the community, essentially what happened is it got split into kind of three separate buckets of Muslims. You had Muslims who were so affected by the hardship here in this country, at least, I'm talking about Muslim Americans, that they took off their hijab, they shaved off their beards, Muhammad became Mo, Abdullah became AB, you had Muslim parents starting to choose, American sounding names. You had people start dressed differently. They stopped coming to the masajid. And that was a group of people, okay? Then you had a second group of people that were kind of Muslimish, okay? They were Muslim by name, and then 9/11 happened, and they split into two categories. This was an interesting category. One category became more in tune with their faith. They became more curious about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and more curious about Islam. They felt a sense of obligation to defend, and they felt a sense of obligation to convey and to clarify. And so many Muslims that are activists today fell in this category. 9/11 happened, a great tragedy. People saw injustice occurring to Muslims, obviously in Iraq and Afghanistan and all over the world, Muslim world, but they saw injustice happening over here in the US. The Patriot Act, the surveillance of Muslims, the detention centers that were opened up, the supposed sleeper cells that we all had under our basements. Everybody knew a terrorist all of a sudden. We all had bombs hiding in our shoes. This was the general sentiment. And so, again, this fracturing of Muslims happened in almost this filtration, almost like you take a colander and you're putting through it, whatever, broccoli or whatever, and the water is coming through. It kind of filtered the Muslims. And you had your group of Muslims who went to the masajid, who became active and joined youth groups and joined the Dawah committee and blah, blah, blah. And so, brothers and sisters, in some weird wackadoo time in history, a tragedy became a source of inspiration for Muslims to become more in tune with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And I'm reminded of this verse in the Quran, in Surah Ali Imran, and this is in relations to the battle of Badr and Uhud. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إن يمسسكم قرح فقد مس القوم قرح مثله وتلك الأيام نداولها بين الناس وليعلم الله الذين آمنوا ويتخذ منكم شهداء والله لا يحب الظالمين. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you have suffered injuries, all right, this ayah was revealed to the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam after the battle of Uhud, when the Muslims got stomped on by the army of Khalid ibn al-Walid because the archers came off of the hill and Khalid ibn al-Walid's army came down, and the Muslims essentially lost their rank. Arrows were raining down on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam left and right, to the extent that the Sahabi that covered the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, they said that he looked like a porcupine because of all of the arrows in his back. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling them that if you've suffered injuries at Uhud, remember that they too suffered injuries similarly at Badr. And that we alternate these days of victory and defeat amongst the people. We alternate these days of victory and defeat amongst the people, so that Allah, this is the point that I want to mention here in this ayah, so that Allah may reveal the true believers and choose martyrs from amongst you, and Allah does not like the wrongdoers. It's such a beautiful verse. It's such a beautiful verse because it's essentially telling us that in times of hardship, in times of genocide, in times of war, in times of the destruction of the ummah, it's not in vain. It's not in vain. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala varies up the days of victory and defeat for the Muslims, so that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can filter from amongst the Muslims the true believers and the shuhada and the people who will become martyrs. So it felt like this post 9/11, honestly, for Muslim Americans here in the States. Now, here's the interesting part. You guys ready? Many of you already know this. Post 9/11, according to many Dawah groups, according to CARE, according to a number of studies, estimates suggested that in the 6 months post 9/11, 30,000 people became Muslim. 30,000 people became Muslim. Think about that. Airplanes flew in the Twin Towers, over 3,000 Americans dead. They blamed it 100% on Islam and Muslims, and 30,000 people become Muslim. How does this make any sense at all? Let's keep going. Post October 7th, estimates suggest that 20,000 people became Muslim post October 7th. You guys want to hear some crazy stats? I've been working on these. It's really interesting. These are the TikTok hashtags and the number of views. Okay. Now, this is not scientific in any way, shape, or form, but it's a good indication of maybe popular feedback. Maybe this is the present day way of us kind of gauging what's trending, what's popular online, and so on. The hashtag white revert, 1.6 million views. The hashtag black revert, Jewish revert, Japanese revert, all around 200,000 views. Now, the hashtag revert, this is in relation to Islam, and this is according to the Free Press magazine, by the way, 2.9 billion views. Revert Muslim, 1.4 billion views. Again, there's no scientific data I can tell you, oh, this is an indication that billions are coming to Islam. No, but it's an indication of popular thought. What was happening after October 7th was so bizarre. It was so bizarre to the extent that you had the quote unquote white middle-aged woman starting to become Muslim. This was a new segment of Muslims in our Dawah efforts. In our Dawah efforts in many organizations, you could tell many of the reverts that are coming in are typically younger. You don't get that many older folks coming into or it's not, you don't get that many. It's the vast majority of reverts coming to Islam are typically younger. But in this latest tranche post October 7th, the middle-aged woman category, something like 8,000 there are some studies, and I can cite a lot of these, by the way, or some of them at least, that suggested around 8,000 middle-aged women. These are the quote unquote Karens that had become Muslim. You saw many of the videos in the past few years, where women would go online and quote verses of the Quran and say, "Oh my God, this makes so much sense." And it was like a verse from Surah At-Tawbah about jihad or something like that. And it was just so comical to see this happen in front of our eyes. And really the question becomes, and this is an important question for us today, and I'm going to open it up for feedback from the audience if it's okay with Sama. Why? Why is it that after tragedy and after so much hatred towards Islam and Muslims, are so many people attracted back into the faith? So if it's okay with you all, I'd like to open it up for some comments on this. Keep your comments short, 2, 3, 4, 5 words. That's it, just so I can write some notes down, and this will help kind of the discussion moving forward, inshallah.
So you want to open the discussion right now, or we keep it after?
Or we can use the chat if that's okay. Is that better? Maybe just in the chat, if you guys have any comments on why you think so many people join the religion or become Muslim after a tragedy, I'd love to hear it in the chat if you don't mind, because this will help gear some of the conversation today, inshallah, if that's okay.
All right.
So if you're in the chat, pop on in, all right? I'm going to keep going, inshallah, while you guys write some of those responses. So those are the facts of what happened on the ground post 9/11, post October 7th. You could see post October 7th, the same thing happened that happened after 9/11. Muslims started to kind of filter themselves into multiple categories. Some became overly Muslim, some became overly political, some kind of went into the deep dark side and kind of left altogether because they couldn't handle the pressure of what they were seeing. Some Muslims started off with this crazy energy towards freeing Palestine, and then 2 months later they were done. They were back on Instagram looking at cat videos and all this nonsense. And so this discussion is so important because it's not just internal factors that are happening with the person. There are some external factors that we're going to talk about today. So what are some of the external factors on why people started to come to Islam in tranches? All right. Number one, the neo-atheist, okay? The New Age atheists. These are atheists like Sam Harris and the likes of, I'm not sure if you guys know who Sam Harris is. A lot of these people are just talking idiots online, to be honest with you, that have degrees and accolades from all these universities, and they go on to spew all sorts of hatred about Islam. The religious types like Jordan Peterson and Ben Shapiro, these are the talking heads, not necessarily conservative, but these are the talking heads online. Their reputations were destroyed after October 7th because their moral clarity became so weak that people saw through their BS. Sam Harris is an incredibly influential person in the atheist world, okay? Jordan Peterson was incredibly influential in this kind of young Christian, attack mode persona about masculinity and blah, blah, blah. And Ben Shapiro, again, incredibly conservative amongst conservatives. Their morality was so shaken because they supported a genocide, and they supported killing babies, and they supported starvation and the destruction of an entire people. Their followers saw through their nonsense. Sam Harris has a meditation app. This is why this is so great. He has a meditation app, and on his meditation app, he talks about being centered and bringing in inner peace and love. And it's just hilarious because in those same sentences, literally an hour later in his podcast, he would talk about the need for the removal of the people from Gaza. And so if you're a young atheist and you hear about morality and how you could bring morality into your life, even if you're an atheist, you don't need religion, what does this do to you? It causes such a schism in your head. You're like, I don't understand this. So many of my friends who loved Sam, I have a lot of non-Muslim friends from high school growing up. We all hang out every once in a blue moon. I keep a distance, but close enough because, we grew up together. So many of my friends loved Sam Harris and Peterson and Joe Rogan and, these types. Joe Rogan's a little different, but they loved listening to them. And I would talk to them about their conservative lifestyle. And I would always question them on this idea that, how Moses, peace be upon him, or Jesus, peace be upon him, would explain what's happening today. And it's interesting that their sense of morality started to crumble. And atheism as an idea, all right, as an idea from a moral standpoint, you could see clear as day is crumbling at a rate that we've never seen before. Brothers and sisters, what happened in the last decade was this crazy rise of atheism. People started leaving religion in droves, and not just leaving religion, but leaving religion to join atheism, to join this new cult. What happened since is this rapid decline of atheism because people are like, hold up, this doesn't make any sense either. I don't understand where morality comes from. So the next big group that we're dealing with now is the religiously unaffiliated. This is the next new category of people that we speak to on a day-to-day basis. Religiously unaffiliated, meaning I'm nothing. I don't want to call myself an atheist. I don't want to call myself agnostic. I don't want to call myself any religion in particular. I'm religiously unaffiliated. I could go to church. I could not. I believe in God. I believe in, whatever. They're kind of open and closed at the same time. It is incredibly annoying and a great opportunity for Islam, okay, and Muslims. So I talked about some exterior factors. I wanted to expand on that just a bit longer, and I'll get to some of your comments, inshallah. Sam Harris's hypocrisy with his meditation app and his morality. Nonsense, right? Immediate clash of civilizations. Jordan Peterson, who was kind of almost viewed as like this bravado Christian male figure, had an incredible, crazy meltdown live on air for all of us to see, and went on to this crazy diet and then lost all this weight. And he was a very influential figure within conservative white America. And his meltdown essentially caused him to kind of go off of and lose his steam. You had the celebrity Dawah movement start to ramping up. And I don't know if you've noticed it lately, but in the NBA, the likes of Kyrie Irving, the likes of Jaylen Brown, the likes of oh my God, the main guy. A lot of brothers in the NBA, mashallah, have been doing incredible dawah to try to bring a lot of these basketball players closer to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to the extent where, Kyrie is showing up at Epic down, or Valley Ranch down in Houston, and at the Masajid in Dallas. We didn't see this before. Before we had, our big main basketball players. Now it's starting to become a bit more popular. Ramadan was starting to get a bit more exposed in the NBA. And a lot of that is because of the celebrity dawah movement. What happened in MMA, what happened with Khabib and with Islam Makhachev and with Joe Rogan kind of taking the mantle to bring them on, and they explain how they're fasting and their lifestyle and what Islam does and doesn't do. A lot of this kind of built up tension, okay? And I'm calling it tension because this idea that atheism is the right answer, or Christianity is the right answer, and Islam being the right answer, sitting on top, was not an option. People did not want to consider Islam as an option. But now it created this tension. With all of these external factors, it's creating this tension where people are forced to wrestle with the fact that Islam might be a good option here. The Hadid sisters, Bella Hadid and her family, online personalities, even though I disagree with many of them, it doesn't matter. People like Sneeko, like Brittany Renner, Sean King is an activist, many of them coming to Islam was a net positive. It showed that it was easy enough to join the religion, and you didn't have to go to great lengths to grow out a 5-foot beard and, you know, wear niqab on day one and change your name to Abdul Hamid. And it showed people that it was an option. Okay. The growing online influencer Muslim movement across the country and across the globe, again, created more and more tension for white America. Okay. This is just the reality on the ground. The last external factor I'm going to talk about is global travel. Okay. Destinations like Dubai, Qatar, Turkey, Bosnia, Malaysia, these are all destinations that have become super popular now. They're no longer the kind of the destinations of beaches and all of the other stuff. A lot of American travelers already went there. And so young travelers are looking for new destinations that are not ridden with like crazy hotels and resorts and things like that. They want authentic experiences. And so you have people going out into the desert of Saudi Arabia and smoking hookah and drinking coffee in the middle of the desert. Now, again, that's not a positive experience for Islam, but it's a positive experience for Muslims, meaning the Islam-Muslim boogeyman kind of gets diminished over and over when these things happen. Now, I mention all of this, brothers and sisters, to talk about these exterior factors happening. These are and were happening pre and post October 7th. So there's a lot of tension in America with Islam and Muslims. The idea behind the Iraq war was completely debunked. Most Americans disagree that we should have went to war with Iraq. Most Americans agree that it was a farce, that it was a BS war, that we should have never been part of. And so you guys understand now the tension that's building up, right? And I've kind of tried to lay down this picture as best as I can. Now, again, I'm speaking in generalities. Of course, the vast majority of America is still very racist, still hates Islam with a passion, but no one can deny this kind of boiling point that's happening. All right, so now to get back to some of your thoughts on why people are joining the ranks of Islam. Our first brother says, يريدون أن يطفئوا نور الله بأفواههم ويأبى الله إلا أن يتم نوره ولو كره الكافرون. On Surah At-Tawbah, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, this is a move from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is that He refuses to let them dim the light of Islam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will continue nur even if they hate it. The second comment is a sense of reality. This is great. This is such a great comment, because I always view it as like an unplugging of the matrix. Okay, and you kind of get a new sense of reality. The Iraq war was a farce, but they lied to us. That's crazy. Atheists are extremely moral human beings. Well, they're supporting the death of over 100,000 Palestinians. How is this in any way, shape, or form morality? We get to the other comment. We will show them our signs in the universe and within themselves until it becomes clear to them that the Quran is truth. Another verse from the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala essentially opens up the path for and shows signs to people. They are truly in doubt of the meeting with their Lord, but He is indeed fully aware of everything. Okay, another verse from the Quran. And Jazakallah khair, a lot of you are putting verses from the Quran. I really wanted to hear more opinion from you, actually. Less, I know obviously the answer to everything is from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That's obvious, right? The Quran's going to give us guidance on all of this stuff. But there has to be some sort of like internal assessment that we do from non-Muslims joining Islam. What was the trigger for them? What helped them overcome, specifically in times of hardship and genocide? Okay, not necessarily in general times, but specifically in times of hardship and genocide. Oh, the hadith of al-Miqdad. Okay, the camel's hair. Yeah, yes. Give me 1 sec. Let me just get through these real fast. After researching Islam, they saw it as a solution to humanity's problems. All right. Caused by capitalism and socialism. Excellent. All the isms. All right. Excellent. I'm going to share a few, and you can disagree or agree. Number one, I just wanted to mention that after the war in Iraq and Afghanistan and what happened with the Taliban getting back into power in Afghanistan, these are political events, but they're important. They're important for Muslims to understand the psyche of the non-Muslim, okay? After what happened in Gaza, and after what our brothers and sisters in Yemen were doing, and after our brothers and sisters in Iran, what they were doing, and after the, and again, agree, disagree, this is not necessarily, I'm not gonna kind of get into the political arena here, just more commentary about what happened in the psyche of Americans because of this. With Yemen in particular, you had the Yemeni Houthis would stop the ships, turn them around, or sink them in the middle of the ocean. Now, what happened is you had a huge socialist network of activists that were always pro-Palestine, but when they saw the Yemenis do this, it almost gave them like another sense of like, hey, this is really interesting. Why are these people like this? They're fighting for Palestinians that they have nothing to do with. And they're turning around ships and they're anti-big corporations and blah, blah, blah. And so you had young white women jump onto TikTok and start chanting Houthi, 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 like it was a cool thing. It was the most bizarre thing that was happening online if you were following any of the social trends in the past few years. I'm talking about young British women that would take trips to Yemen as vacationing. And you saw a spike in Yemeni travel, something like 350% increase in travel to Yemen after the Houthis did what they did. It was so bizarre. So again, brothers and sisters, I want to talk about some of the reasons. All right, number one, a sense of resilience. A sense of resilience. This might seem like such an obvious thing to you and I, who have been Muslim for a long time. In our tradition, you are met with hardship and you have sabr, right? This is what we tell ourselves all the time, right? You have a sense of you go through something really difficult, you get laid off, and then your mom comes to you and tells you, "Asbur ya ibni," like, you know, Allah bifroj, Allah yafraj alaik. You know, you don't go into this like insane depression. We don't have this habit of taking on Adderall and drugs for depression. Now, it happens within the Muslim community. I'm not saying it doesn't. I don't want to downplay that. Of course it happens, but it's not an open, normal thing that happens. It's not a thing that Muslims do. We have just this sense of resilience. We understand that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the ultimate judge. There's a hereafter, and ultimately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to take care of us. And so resilience was such an important key element of why so many people accepted Islam. They saw the Palestinian people in Gaza essentially get their lives completely ruined. 90% of Gaza is completely demolished. Who knows what the death toll is? Maybe 200,000-300,000 plus. Children starving, and the people are somehow still resilient. And they talk to you as if Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's faraj is near, that victory is near. This is the most bizarre thing that can happen to your 35-year-old young white American. They don't understand this. What the hell are you talking about? I talked to them. They're like, I just don't understand how a Palestinian thinks they're gonna claim victory. I was like, you don't understand. This is a Muslim thing. And they're just in awe from this. To you and I, this is a normal thing. Of course, you know, this is an expectation that we have. We're met with hardship and we persevere. Unwavering faith is number two. It is truly mind-boggling and Jazakallah khairan for putting that comment, but it's mind-boggling the unwavering faith of our dear brothers and sisters in Gaza and our dear brothers and sisters really all over the Middle East that have been suffering for eons with this stuff. SubhanAllah, even our brothers and sisters in Afghanistan, what they were able to endure and then ultimately win. Our brothers and sisters in Syria, what they were able to endure and then ultimately win. Allahu Akbar. Brothers and sisters, this is not, that we're joyful because of what they were able to accomplish, and they are, you know, I'm not talking again about the Taliban or anything, but Islam was back in a place of good. But the unwavering faith of people, the unwavering resilience, that is something that does not exist here. We live in a land of lavish, okay? We give up very easily. We are people, Americans are people that, and I say we because we're part of that. We give up way too soon, all right? We have no stamina, no will. It's just, we're doomed because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has tested us with na'im, with blessings. And this is our test that we're dealing with. The third point here is the unwillingness to liberalize and bastardize our religion. And I say this bluntly, brothers and sisters, because this is a really important point. Muslims generally speaking, have kept true to what Islam teaches, okay? There's a lot of movements to take the religion into areas, all sorts of areas, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala protect us from that. But what I will say is, generally speaking, overall Muslims have remained true to who they are. We pray regularly. We do the things, the traditions within Islam. Even if they're not overly logical to the day-to-day American, we do them as a matter of worship because we understand that these things done consistently help the overall structure of life make sense, okay? You might go to prayer, and in your prayer and in your salah, you feel absolutely nothing. You have zero khushu', you have zero connection in your prayer. You just did the motion of prayer. And in that motion, you still get rewarded because it is an overall act, a consistent overall act of ibadah that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demands. And in that system of consistent ibadah, you are constantly inching up, even if you don't feel it as some, like, you know, angel flew through you or something like that. This is the American version of worship and prayer. They think, okay, I need some spiritual guidance. So I go to Rumi and Sufi Islam, and they're trying to seek essentially what? They're trying to get a high. Just like with sugar, they want to get a quick high of sugar, and now I'm happy. I have sugar. I go on a roller coaster, I'm happy. I have sex, I'm happy. I do these things, I'm happy. With Islam, there's not a lot of that. There is consistent hard work. There's consistent effort, all right? The short prayers, consistently 5 times a day. You're not going to get a quick burst of spirituality every single prayer. Of course not. But collectively over a period of time, there's an improvement. And this is, again, an unwillingness to liberalize and bastardize our religion. We generally have not given in on LGBT. We have not given in on riba. We've not given in on core things that essentially change the institution of Islam. We haven't accepted all faiths. We haven't accepted, you know, remove your hijab, it's no big deal. We haven't done that yet. Inshallah, it doesn't happen, but we haven't done that yet. It happens in all sorts of communities. But again, brothers and sisters, overall, the perception is that we are the most in tune with our faith, that we follow our traditions like how it was revealed. And that is such an important thing when you, with Christianity, it is on such shaky ground, changes so often. In Catholicism, in Judaism, Lord knows what that is. It's such shaky ground that all of these supposed believers, when they see Islam, they despise it because it makes sense and the followers adhere to it. This is like the worst thing that you could happen to the church. The worst thing that can happen to the church is a religion that makes sense and the people follow their traditions. I'm going to hit you guys with something hard, all right?
Brother Amir, it's been time for prayer here, and I know of some of the brothers, they join the Maghrib prayer.
Yes.
If you don't mind, can we go just for a break, salah break, inshallah, and come back?
Of course. Yes.
All right. We'll see you in a bit, inshallah.
Yalla, bismillah.
Welcome back, everyone. Inshallah, may Allah accept your prayer and your dua. I'm sorry to interrupt. I tried to find the spot where you stop So I have to take the opportunity and inshallah go and pray Maghrib. But you were talking about something mind-blowing. I hope you didn't miss that point because I'm looking forward to hear it.
um, yeah, the mind-blowing part's coming. Yeah.
All right.
I'll get to it. Inshallah.
Inshallah.
I'll figure it out. I can't remember what I was going to say, but inshallah it'll come to me.
You'll get it.
Bismillah. Yeah.
Inshallah.
Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Alhamdulillah, salatu wassalam ala Rasulullah. All right. So we talked about the unwillingness. We talked about a few things: resilience, not unwavering faith, unwillingness, to liberalize and bastardize our religion. This is a really, really important point to remember when speaking to non-Muslims, because the urge is to show commonality. The urge is to show that we're just like you. The urge is to show that we can accept you wherever you're at, and that's a very dangerous urge. It's a very dangerous urge because there's a difference between us trying to kind of play PR Muslim and us accepting something that is clearly forbidden or outside of the ranks of Islam. Okay, and what do I mean by this? I mean, in the Christian world, for example, as a religion, they've essentially kind of everything goes. Obviously, fornication is haram in their religion, but every Christian I've ever met in my life has fornicated. Okay, riba is generally frowned upon and is actually haram in their religion, and every single Christian I know is involved with riba. And again, I was saying that Islam is different and Muslims are different. There is some semblance of core good here. The last point that I wanted to mention here is that the simplicity of Islam. This is the other kind of major reason why there's such a big rush after such a big tragedy, because people generally tend to seek things that are simple. They need simple explanations to what happened here, and they need simple solutions to the root cause of their problem. I'll give you an example. My sister works in the film industry, and she has this friend named Kevin. Kevin's married. He's going to be a new father next week, inshallah. And he was an alcoholic for about 25, 30 years of his life. He went through Alcoholics Anonymous. He's been sober for about 6, 7 years. And he's played the religion game. He's bounced from here to there, was a Buddhist for a bit, played this for a bit. Past few years, he dropped everything and still could not find anything that was, in his words, easily palatable and simple. He said the only thing that's made sense so far from the beginning has been Islam. And he's like, it's so weird, Amir. I don't want to become Muslim. I don't. For whatever reason, something inside of me is telling me not to become Muslim, but I know for a fact that it's true. And so I believe in everything. He's like, but I haven't said the testament of faith, and I haven't made the decision to become Muslim. And it's so interesting hearing his words, because I've heard this a lot, not from him alone, from so many people. And I asked him, what were the main reasons? Why do you feel like Islam is the answer? And he said, because it's so simple. It's just, there's God, and then you worship and believe God. I was like, yeah, that's pretty much it. there's nothing to it. He's like, yeah, he's like, for whatever reason, everything else I've looked into is so complicated. But with Islam, it just seems very natural, very easy. You just have Allah, and then you worship Allah. And I was like, Kevin, that's exactly right. That's exactly right. There's no intermediary. There's no in between. There's no, anything at all. It's you and God and Allah, and in your prayer and in your fasting. These are things to help you become a better person. Your charity is to help your community. Your community helps you become a better person. And so anyways, by the way, the da'wah that I'm giving him is related to his child. He's already convinced that Islam is true. What is going to convince him now to make the leap, in my assessment, Allah Alam, I could be wrong on this, but this is what I'm using with him, is his child. He's going to be a father. And in being a father and starting a family unit, you need community. Without community and a nucleus of people around you, then your faith becomes weakened over time. And the best way to protect your family is by joining a community. And so that's the route I'm taking with him. We'll see, inshallah, how effective it is or not. But Allah Alam, he's already there. At least he believes, alhamdulillah. So these are my humble opinions on why, mashallah, on why people are so attracted to Islam after a major tragedy or genocide or things like that. And so I'm gonna jump into a few stats. All right, you guys could probably tell from my talk, I like stats, I like data. And so in 2020, and these are some things that you could share, inshallah, on your dawah. All right, and again, in dawah in times of genocide, these are some things that you can share with others. So 2020 survey from Indiana University. Indiana University is kind of known as like the, in terms of philanthropy, it is the authority of philanthropy in the country, okay? When it comes to universities studying philanthropy, okay? So many Muslim institutions send their fundraisers to Indiana University's program to study philanthropy and so on. Anyways, according to Indiana Universities, Muslim Americans gave more in charity than non-Muslim Americans. So Muslim Americans per capita or per whatever gave more in charity per person than non-Muslims did, okay? Why do I mention this? This is not like a show off. This is to show that Muslims care about the other, that we are less concerned about our wealth and more concerned about others and their status and their well-being. And so what that puts, that mind frame puts you in a mind frame of service, that you're in constant service to others. And this is a data point and a statistic that directly correlates to that idea. So when Muslims say that we are concerned about our brothers and sisters all over the world, here's a data point that supports that. We give more in charity than non-Muslims do in America. The survey also, the study also found that Muslims are more likely than non-Muslims to volunteer their time. Muslims are more likely than non-Muslims to volunteer their time. And subhanAllah, you could see it in our community. Allahu Akbar, everyone's willing to pitch in, no matter what the cause. We don't view it like, we don't have like the, oh, track your volunteer hours for a free ice cream at, you know, at whatever. We don't view it like that. This is a thing that we do on our own, that sometimes we don't even want you to know that we're volunteering our time. My friends find it weird that I don't track my hours. They're like, well, I don't understand. Like, why don't you track your hours? This is a good thing. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Who am I going to tell this to? There's nobody in my life that I want to know, that I want them to know how many volunteer hours I'm working. This is not a thing. Again, yeah, you could track them for school or a job opportunity or something. Yeah, that's different. But in general, if you're doing khair, you don't want anybody to know about it. I even, use the example of when you give in sadaqah, you want to give from your right hand so that your left hand doesn't know, right? That's kind of how Muslims do things, that we want to do things where that protects our dignity and the person's dignity, not for a sense of showing off or anything like that. According to Pew Research, this is not about Muslims, but this is about religion in general. And it's important that we apply this in our dawah. Actively religious people are more likely than less religious peers to describe themselves as happy. And in about half the country surveys, this was a pretty massive survey conducted about religiously affiliated versus non-religiously affiliated. And it basically shows that people who are religious, who are committed to a religion, are generally happier. They report a higher sense of satisfaction and a higher sense of happiness than non-religious people. Again, all of this is to prove our point that in times of genocide, Muslims are going to give more, Muslims volunteer more, Muslims are happier, even in the toughest of times. Even in the toughest of times. So what gives us our resilience are the things that are laid out in our religion. It's very easy. Muslims don't get drunk. Muslims don't overdose on coke. These are a little more kind of quick things that I like to say sometimes in Dawah. And again, everybody has a drunk Muslim friend, yes. Again, everybody has that friend that maybe does this and that. But again, generally speaking, this is not a thing that's across the board in the Muslim community. It's not. And so these are some thoughts that I wanted to share. I'm actually, I only have a few more things and then it's done. Those are some general thoughts about why Dawah during or in times of hardship or genocide is really important, and our language needs to be a bit more geared towards addressing those things because there's an appetite for it, right? It's a relevant discussion outside of the typical kind of outside of the typical stuff that we talk about, Tawheed and everything else. These are things that we can work into our Dawah to try to get the person a bit more amenable, and then to the Tawheed route, inshallah. Ramzi, do you mind if we leave questions to the end? I only got 2 more points, if that's okay. All right, sweet. Really 2 more things here that I want to talk about, and then we're done, inshallah. So number 1 is what is ibadah in Islam? What is worship in Islam? This is another big topic that we get to befuddle with non-Muslims, all right? If I were to ask you, describe worship at the church, what would you say? You would say it's a series of hymns and a rock band and the pastor going up and saying some prayers from Genesis or from wherever. It's a series of things that you say. Maybe you get on your knees for about 15 seconds and then you get off. Worship is singing in a circle with a guitar and some dude yelling Jesus 58 times throughout the song. Generally speaking, honestly, that's kind of it. There is no depth to the idea of ibadah in the Christian tradition. There is not a lot of depth. Maybe once you get to a bit more Orthodox Catholicism and Christianity, you get some depth there. Greek Orthodox, they take it a bit more seriously. There's this concept of like of khalwa, or seclusion, yeah. But with mainstream Christianity and evangelicals, none of that exists. Now, ibadah in our religion is really interesting. And this is another point that I think wins us the argument all the time. That ibadah in our religion is activism. It's salah, it's charity, it's volunteerism, it's all of the above are considered worship in our religion. It's not strictly when I go open the Quran and read the words of Allah. It's all of the things. When we do acts of kindness, when we do acts of mercy, this is sunnah. Doing sunnah is ibadah. These are things that are considered in our religion a form of worship. So it brings a new level of depth to the non-Muslim that's learning about worship, that you in your daily life, when you are not participating in usury or excessive interest, that you are doing yourself a favor. You're fighting a temptation, and this is a struggle that you're going through, and this is a form of ibadah. That you, in your activism on the front lines of a protest, all right, that this is considered worship because you're not doing this out of humanity's sake. You're not doing this because the killing of innocent Palestinians is bad. We're doing this because it's a commandment from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, first and foremost. And it also is for humanity's sake. This is a weird thing that non-Muslims contend with. They don't understand this. And so when you say it and explain it a bit further, it gives them a little more depth. It goes beyond the Rumi Instagram shareable meme or GIF or one-liner poetry. It goes a bit beyond that. It's not as shallow. It's a little more engaging. The last point I want to mention is the intersectionality of struggles. What is this? The intersectionality of struggles. What I mean by this is, I'll tell you, brothers and sisters, actually with this whole ICE immigration thing down here in LA, what's been happening is so many Muslims have shown up to the front lines to defend and help people who are immigrants in this country who've been unjustly targeted by the Trump administration, that they've viewed Islam as a real option. They viewed Muslims as like, we're down. You guys showed up for us. Let me explore your religion more. And we're seeing Latino Muslims come into Islam in a weird kind of spurts. All of a sudden, we're seeing the masjid filled with a lot more Latino speaking, and I find myself getting invited to this church or getting invited to this rally a bit more. It's weird. And so there's intersectionality sometimes, right? We saw on the front lines of the Gaza movement, who was on the front lines, honestly, a lot of Latinos, a lot of Jews. The level of the number of Jews becoming Muslim is unprecedented. Never have we seen this spike of Jews becoming Muslim. This has never been seen. In my masjid alone, we've had 35 Jews become Muslim. 35, never have I ever. I met like one Jewish Muslim before. 35 in the last year. Now, again, we're a small minority community, the Jewish community, small minority community. 35 is a big number. It's not a small number. And that's just in our community. So there's intersectionality of struggles, all right? And what that means is we support a cause that is of just, is a just cause, and there is some curiosity that spikes from the people that are being supported, all right? Whether it be immigration, whether it be whatever the cause may be. Oh man, I feel like I've been talking forever. I'm sorry for yapping your ear off. Forgive me if I've gone off track with some things. Inshallah, I'll open it up to Samir so you could lead the discussion and the Q&A, and then we'll go from there.
All right, Jazakallah khair. May Allah reward you. And we definitely, I see a lot of comments here and a lot of people eager to either comment or ask a question.